And there were kids who maybe weren't deemed as smart that were doing really, really well, even if they had to work a little harder for it. And the bottom line in her studies over and over, because now they've looked beyond just education. They've looked at a number of different areas. And they wanted to ask the question, can we predict success in any of these number of fields, in any of these areas? And they found over and over again that success came down to one thing, and guess what that was? Stick-to-itiveness. It came down to grit. It came down to people who were not going to give up. They had the tenacity to keep going even when things get hard. And I love her definition of it. And this is what I really wanted to get to. Because she says that grit isn't just perseverance alone. It's perseverance and passion for long-term goals. I love that. I believe that grit is a fusion of perseverance, but it also has to be combined with passion. Passion for something. Like where you feel it down in your spirit so deeply that you are not going to let go when it's combined with that perseverance. The psalmist had grit, or at least he describes grit here. He described the enemy running plows up and down the back, making deep trenches. Like, just imagine somebody, like, just prone, like they're just lying there on the ground, and somebody's taking, like, I don't know, these miniature plows and going, you know. It's horrible, right? But that's what he's sensing. That's what he's visualizing here. The great oppression that they were dealing with would not make them budge. They would not budge despite the length of time that they endured it, which was from youth. He's saying it was a long time that we were enduring the oppression. A long time. Then there were 3 words in the psalm that changed everything. 3 words that gave them the ability to keep going, that provided hope for the long term. 3 words that were game-changing, turning things back to Israel's favor. And these were those three words. It's found in verse 4. But the Lord are the 3 words that changed everything. But the Lord, the righteous one, sets the record straight. He restores things back as they should be. He puts things back in place. It says in the rest of verse 4, He has cut me free from the cords of the wicked. See, they thought they were making progress. They thought that they could cut me down. They thought that they could bring their opposition against me in such a way that I would give up. But I did not give up, and then the Lord came through. That is grit. Then we see the passion of the psalmist come through. And I have to say this first of all, his passion might be a little misguided. Okay? This probably isn't the scripture to live our lives off of, but listen to what he says here. In verse, I think it's starting in verse 5. May all who hate Zion, all right, Zion is the representation of the place of God's dwelling, right? And of the people of God. Zion. May those who hate Zion be turned back in shame. May they be like grass on the roof, which withers before it can grow. A reaper cannot fill his hands with it, nor one who gathers fill his arms. May those who pass by not say to them, so we're not going to bless them in the name of the Lord. We're going to leave them to their shame, right? So we might question whether the psalmist had the right response, but there is no question about his passion. There is no question about his passion. He had the grit. Many others have had grit that we read about through the Bible. And I'd love to go through all of them, but I'm not going to do that. I'll spare you. But Hebrews 11, the great faith chapter, right, lists all of them. You know, consider the faith of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all these people. He just goes down the list. And why does he do that? It's to get to this point. It's the verse 1 of chapter 12. It says this, therefore, for you guys, since you are surrounded by all of these people that have led the way in faith in God, that have trusted him through thick and thin, and have come through, okay? Because we're surrounded by these people, let us throw off the sin, everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with what? Perseverance. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Run, and then run some more. All right? Don't give up. Don't stop. Look at the example of those who have gone before you that have accomplished so much. Even when it's hard, don't throw in the towel. Don't. Just don't. Keep going. I always imagine like myself standing in the middle of a stadium. A gigantic stadium. The biggest one, I think the biggest one I can think of I've been to is the RCA Dome in Indianapolis or the Pontiac Silverdome. With tens of thousands of seats, and I just imagine it full of everybody who's gone before. Like the Joan of Arcs and, all these people that have stood up for their faith. Elizabeth Elliot's sitting in there, and Moses and Abraham are sitting in there, and they're all cheering me on. They're all saying, Kevin, don't stop, don't give up. Look at what we've accomplished because we just trusted in our God. And I want you to imagine yourself standing there in the middle of that same stadium. They're talking to you. They're saying, you know what? We were just normal people, but we had an enormous God. And so that's why we didn't give up. And look at what happened as a result of that. That's amazing. And of course, Jesus had grit. Listen to the rest of the passage. Hebrews 12:1. Actually, I'll start at the beginning. Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Here it comes. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer, the author, the perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross. That's perseverance. He scorned its shame. That is passion. And he sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured, there's another perseverance word, such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary, and so that you will not lose heart. That's passion. Heart. When you need some grit, think about your role model, your example, the lover of your soul. Look at his perseverance. Look at his passion. The Passion of the Christ. That's such a great title for that movie, huh? He stopped at nothing to win the prize. So let's stop being babies. Let's stop being whiners. Let's stop stopping short of things that are truly worthy of our attention and our affections and putting our all into it. Here's some things that I think grit is. Grit is pushing through the pain of the past to find freedom and healing in Jesus. Sometimes the past hurts. Sometimes those experiences keep trying to bubble up, right? They keep trying to come up. They keep coming against us. Push through. Grit is enduring persecution. Whether it's subtle and manipulative or outright and in your face, grit is moving through it. Jesus has been through that with you. Grit is praying until you have breakthrough or until you have persisted to the point that it's long enough in prayer. How long is that? I have no idea. But I can tell you this. that there were people who did not give up. Moses asked God for some bold things and even changed God's mind on something. Hezekiah begged and pleaded with God, extend the years of my life, after God told him he was going to die. And what did God do? He extended the years of his life. Jesus told a parable about a persistent widow who would not give up. She kept begging and pleading and pleading and begging until she got her answer. You might need to persist in prayer if you're not seeing breakthrough in other ways. Persist in prayer. Do not give up. Do not give up. Grit is bringing the kingdom to bear on any given situation by coming in the opposite spirit of the opposition. If somebody's coming at you in anger, come at them with a sense of peace and forgiveness. Speak gently to them. Don't speak angrily back at them. Come in the opposite spirit. It's powerful. The Bible even talks about heaping burning coals upon their head just by a gentle response. I think of one example. Paul told Timothy, and we know this verse well, God has not given you a spirit of timidity. Timidity is not the Lord's spirit. That's the opposition. And he felt that. Timothy apparently felt that when it came to expressing his spiritual gifts. He was young among a lot of, maybe older fellows. And he felt this resistance to using his spiritual gifts. And Paul said, no, because that is not God's spirit. That is opposition that's trying to hold you back from using the gifts that God has given you. And so instead, he has given you a spirit of power. He has given you a spirit of love and a spirit of self-discipline. He's like, that is the spirit that you need to come in opposition to this other spirit with. The thing about grit, it's developed over time, isn't it? It's not like you're going to snap your fingers now and have grit. But as you have grit and as you persevere, your grit grows. Amen. It gets stronger. It grows. Ethan was at camp a couple weeks ago. I'm just going to make this really quick. Tell this story. Because he's not here. Gabe, don't tell him I told you. All right. Last year at camp, he had two really huge challenges. One was swimming. They were in this lake that it was waves, wind, it was choppy. He did not pass his swim test the first time. The other was the climbing wall. He's like, Dad, I'm afraid of heights, I'm afraid of heights, I'm afraid of heights. He kept speaking that out. I'm like, just go for it. You know what I mean? And through both of those things, despite some tears and a lot of coaching, he went back and he ended up passing his swim test. And there was something that happened. I watched this change come over him in that moment. And then he made it to the top of the climbing wall. All right? Huge, huge leaps for him. Okay? This year, we went to camp again. Guess what? The first time, he did not pass his swim test again. He was really frustrated. He stopped partway. I don't know what happened, but so he came to me and I was like, you've been there before. You know that you can do this. And you know what? This time he didn't wait several days to go back and do the swim test again and need all this coaching from me. He went right back down to the water. He took that swim test again and he passed it easily. The climbing wall. Here we go again. No, I don't want to do it. He gets part way up. He's like, I can't do this. He made it to the top of the climbing wall again. But then a third thing came up, something new. And see, that's the thing. We get through those challenges. We see, okay, I can do this now. Yeah. I've got the grit now because I've been there before. And then there's the new challenge that we face. But this time, first of all, I prepared him as the coach. I said, you know what? You're going to do archery merit badge. And it's going to be really hard. A lot of the guys at the previous camp, They were shedding some tears, your scoutmaster told me.